Alright, so first here I just started off by introducing myself as the student physical therapist assistant and then verifying if I have the right patient by asking for his first and last name and his date of birth. I then explain what procedures we'll be performing today, and then I tell him that first we're going to start off with measuring his ankle eversion. I then showed Manny passively how to perform ankle eversion and then also felt for his end feels, which felt normal, being an elastic feel. I also took a general gross strength test on his ankle eversion, and the patient had no problem resisting, so he tested a 5 out of 5 on the numerical muscle grading system. After the gross strength test, we move on to measuring his ankle eversion with the goniometer. So I had my fulcrum at the midway between the malleoli, my stationary arm in line with the tibia, and my movable arm followed the midline of the second metatarsal. Manny's ankle eversion measured at about 20 degrees. Normal range is 0 to 15 degrees, with functional range being 10 to 20 degrees. Next, we moved on to a manual muscle test of the extensor digitorum longus and brevis. This was performed in a seated position with the patient's foot fully exposed. The patient was shown the movement first, with it being the extension of his second to fifth digits, which I then had him perform actively. When in this position again, I applied pressure into toe flexion. The patient showed no deficits and tested a 5 out of 5 on the manual muscle testing grade. Next, we move on to a manual muscle test for the fibularis longus and brevis. So I had the patient move into a supine position with a towel under his right ankle. I showed the movement to the patient first, with it being plantar flexion and eversion, and then I asked him to perform the active range of motion, which he did, and received a 3 out of 5 rating at this point. The patient then performs the movement again and is asked to resist my pressure that is applied at the bottom of his foot into inversion and dorsiflexion. He showed no deficits and tested a 5 out of 5 on the manual muscle testing grade. Next, we'll be doing a Thomas test measuring the muscle length of the rectus femoris. The patient lies supine with his legs hanging free off the foot end of the table. I then had him hold his non-tested leg into hip and knee flexion and allowed his tested leg, which is the right leg, to fall on the table. Normal findings are if the tested leg lies flat on the table or if knee flexion is above 80 degrees, which it was. So the patient tested normal. Lastly, we'll be doing the Thompson test as our special test. This special test is to assess a ruptured Achilles tendon. I had the patient prone with his feet extended over the edge of the table. I then asked him to relax and I squeezed the muscle bellies of the gastrocnemius and the soleus. This test was negative as the patient's foot plantar flexed.